Welcome to the Forager Podcast, where I talk with cottage food entrepreneurs about their strategies for running a food business from home. I'm David Crable, and today I'm talking with Michelle Chesser. But before I begin, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this episode, The Cottage Foodie. The founder, Matt Rosen, was recently on the show and shared that he was inspired to start The Cottage Foodie to help other bakers fulfill their dreams. The Cottage Foodie is an online directory that will expand your customer base and connect you with food enthusiasts not only across your own state, but around the country as well. It's the go-to resource for consumers everywhere seeking unique, locally made treats. By joining the Cottage Foodie, you'll also get to connect and network with an exclusive community of cottage food producers who are passionate about running their food businesses from the comfort of home. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to showcase your talents and grow your cottage food business. To join the Cottage Foodie and learn more, go to forager.com/cottagefoodie. All right, so I have Michelle on the show today. She lives in Millersville, Missouri, and sells cinnamon rolls and other baked goods with her home food business, Home Sweet Home Bakery. Michelle started her cottage bakery 16 years ago when she was living in a mobile home trailer and homeschooling her 4 young kids. She started very small and steadily grew her business until it became so successful that she had to intentionally scale back multiple times. She now has a commercial kitchen built into her home and sells many thousands of baked goods each year. But she does more than that. She also has a separate, very popular lemonade business in the summertime, a weekly catering gig, and a coaching business where she helps other food entrepreneurs build their bakeries. She is well known online as the Home Sweet Home Baker and now has over 180,000 followers on Instagram. And yet, she says that she still has time to binge Netflix with her husband. I'm still not quite sure how that's possible, but rest assured, this is an episode you won't want to miss. And with that, let's jump right in. Welcome to the show, Michelle. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me, David. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, Michelle, you've been doing this for a very long time. Take me back.
It's been 16 years since I started my home bakery. I started with my 4 children when they were small. We lived in a 2-bedroom trailer, and I thought, well, how can I teach my children a good work ethic? We started growing vegetables in our garden and selling them at the farmer's market, and then we added baked goods, and the rest is history.
So, yeah, I know you started this baked goods business. What year was that?
2009.
And what did you start with? What did you start selling?
That was back in the day when cupcakes were really trending. I'm sure you can remember when cupcakes were all the rage. And so I jumped on that train and we brought cupcakes to the market, sold out. We made $85. I thought that I was rich. I was thrilled. And so we started doing that. The market was on a Tuesday afternoon. And we started selling the cupcakes as long as the weather cooperated. We couldn't do it in the summer because the icing would melt. And little by little, we would go longer through the year during the markets until we were going the entire season. We added cookies. And once we added cinnamon rolls, it was like, okay, we found our signature item and they took off. And then things just went from there.
Now, you said you were living in a mobile home at the time. So you started this business from a mobile home kitchen.
Yes, we moved out to the country in 2005 and wanted some land. We have 5 acres, so our children would have space to roam. We homeschooled, and it was a 2-bedroom single wide, and we were planning on living in it for 2 to 3 years, and we wound up living there 10 years. And the kitchen had about 3 feet of counter space. We but we made it work. I mean, we would set up tables in the living room and put our baked goods on those. And actually, we were able to build this home that we live in now with the money from the home bakery. I had no idea it would ever pan out that way, but it worked out. My husband and my children built this house on our property, and we love it.
That is really an amazing story. And I know there's a lot of bakers out there who feel like they don't have enough kitchen space or their house isn't big enough. But I don't think there's been quite anyone on the podcast who's had such humble beginnings as starting their business in a little mobile home trailer. So, I mean, it couldn't have been easy. You said you made it work, but did you feel stressful? Did you feel like quitting at some point? Like it just sounds like it must have been very hard.
Yes, I'm a very organized person. I don't like clutter. So we didn't have a pantry. We didn't have a place for, a mixer on our counter. We didn't have a place for our ingredients in any of our cabinets. And so we had to figure that out. My husband built me a little shelf that we put behind our recliner in the living room so I could put ingredients on. We're one of those people who had our extra freezer on the front porch because we couldn't fit one in the house. And yes, it was challenging. Every February, I would get, I guess, cabin fever because you were in the house all winter and there was really no place you could go without someone being there. And it was hard, but I learned to be content. In fact, I would pray a lot that the Lord would give me contentment because even though it was a small place, there's a people that live in much worse circumstances. So we had a roof over our head, we had plenty to eat, we had heat, we had air conditioning. But yes, when we moved into this house, I still feel so much gratitude for this house and for what I have here. It does not get taken for granted at all.
You mentioned your kids a few times already, and it sounds like they're a pretty integral part of this.
Yes, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. When I started the bakery, they were 6, 6, 7, and 8. And as they got older, they could do more and more. My boys hated the bakery. They did not want to work in the bakery at all, but they had to because this is what we did. And the girls loved it. So as soon as my older son, Brandon, was able to get a real job when he turned 15 and he was hired by a landscaper, he was gone. He was working all the time. And Drew had to still help us. But my daughters, they're twins, they really helped me. And when they were 16, they did go to Chick-fil-A. I told them I wasn't going to force them to stay here and work for me. And they did go to Chick-fil-A, but both of them came back and worked in the bakery after they were married.
Yeah. And I saw some social media posts about Drew. Can you share a little bit about him?
Drew is our child with special needs. He actually has a chromosome deletion. He has 18q minus. He is 26, and although he is extremely smart, he cannot live by himself. He kind of lives in his own little world most of the time. He can be quite independent, but definitely needs help and guidance. So he will live with us for the rest of his life. And he is definitely a challenge, but also a blessing. He helps out a lot. Right now, we had a lot of flood damage over the weekend. So he's out cleaning up the yard and getting the gravel back in the driveway.
There are just so many things you've already mentioned that I feel like a lot of people would consider roadblocks, living in a mobile home or having four young kids and then one of which is very special needs. Like it sounds like there are so many things that could have prevented you from starting a business in the first place. So what do you think was inside of you that caused you to move forward with it?
I am quite determined. Ask my husband. I think I drive him crazy. But I didn't start out my bakery like I'm going to build a baking empire. It was just a small, slow growth. So when we started the home bakery, we would go, to the market once a week. That was it. We didn't have orders, we didn't have caterings, we didn't have pop-ups or anything like that. It was very slow because I had 4 young children and it just slowly grew and we had obstacles, but I also like no one is going to tell me I can't do something. Like I'm going to do it and I'm going to figure it out. I'm very self-motivated, which I think you have to be in this business because you're going to have burnout. You're going to have terrible obstacles. But now that I've been doing this for 16 years, you expect them. The first time I had an obstacle, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have to quit because I can't do this." And then I've learned that you're going to have obstacles all the time and you just have to be committed or just keep going. Because I'm in this for the long haul. I love it. even through all the struggles. I love it.
Well, 16 years into this, you can imagine that you've faced a number of probably very large obstacles. What are some of the ones that stand out to you?
Markets are hard and you have to be committed to them. And one time we were about to leave for market. It was a Thursday morning and we had a freak thunderstorm. Power went out while I was baking things and a tree fell over the driveway. And I just said, that's it. I'm done. I was gross. I couldn't take a shower because we didn't have water. My cinnamon rolls were in the oven, half baked, that you had spent all week getting ready for. And then there was a tree over the driveway, which my husband wasn't home to use the chainsaw to get it off. And I remember going, I'm done. And then 5 minutes later, I remember thinking, all right, Michelle, this is an issue. Let's do a solution. And we figured it out. I put a hat on my head. I covered up my hair. The cinnamon rolls kept baking. We just didn't open the oven. They worked out. And all of us, me and all the children, went out and worked to get that tree off the driveway. Other times that obstacles I've had is when you don't make any money, when you price something wrong and you lose money, when you mess up and you have to give a customer a full refund even though you worked so hard on it. All of these things happen to every home baker. And what people think is this only happens to me. This only happens because I messed up. Absolutely not. They happen to every home baker. Are you in it for the long run or are you in it until something bad happens and you mess up? You have to be in it for the long run to have a successful home bakery. And just recently, my freezer went out. I had 60 pans of cinnamon rolls in there because I freeze them. And I woke up and I saw that the door was cracked and I saw the water on the floor and I just started crying. And I'm not a crier. I know that sounds funny. I'm not a crier, and I just thought, "Oh my goodness." And you cry 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you pick yourself up and you go, "Okay, so what's the solution? How am I gonna fix this?"
So that freezer being thought out, like what did that represent in terms of a loss to your business?
That was about 12 to $1,500. So I actually called our insurance agent and she said, "No, if it had been an act of God, as in a storm, that would be covered. But because I left it open, it's not covered." And I understand because I can see a baker saying, "Oh, my stuff didn't sell. I'm just going to leave the freezer open so I get paid for this thousands of dollars worth of stuff." I understand that. But it was hard. If it had been in the beginning of my business, it would have hurt horribly. You can't take huge hits at the beginning of the at your business because you don't have the money. But now that I have a cushion built in, it's okay. It's okay. I can handle it. It's no fun and it hurts. But that's another reason I really stress to home bakers not to go into debt, because if you're in debt and you've put everything on a credit card and then something like this happens, it's really going to hurt your bottom line.
So you said that your business started very slowly, obviously very humbly. It was a slow growth process. And I just want to step forward, fast forward to today. What does your business look like today?
Right now, so we have a commercial kitchen in our home next to our regular kitchen. When we built our house, there was an extra room between the regular house and the garage. So it was supposed to be a screened-in porch. And my husband said, "Well, I'm going to stud it up just in case." And we did. And so when the opportunity came for us to bake for a coffee shop, we were easily able to make that a commercial kitchen. Right now, I do pop ups in our local town every few weeks. I'm still doing markets. I do holiday events. And I just stopped baking for 3 coffee shops. I was doing the wholesale business for over 8 years. And just 2 weeks ago was the last time I did that.
You said something I don't think anyone's ever said on the podcast before, which was it wasn't too hard to add a commercial kitchen to our home.
I know that does sound crazy, doesn't it? Okay. So we had this extra room, and my husband said, I'll set it up because he built our house. He's a carpenter. He used to build houses for a living. And in order to have a commercial kitchen, what we needed was a 3 basin sink, a hand washing sink, walls we could wipe off. This is funny, a trash can, a broom, nothing else really. And we had to have our water tested. That's it. The health inspector comes once a year. She just came last week. It's $120 for me to have my permit all year. Honestly, Missouri is pretty easy. They test our water because we're on a well. That's the only thing that makes me nervous. But she just texted me and said it passed, so we're good for another year.
You said you built the kitchen to do the wholesale and you did that for 8 years and you just are just stopping now. How much wholesale have you been doing?
It was 120 to 150 pans of cinnamon rolls every week. But for the first 6 years of my wholesale, I baked all of the treats for a local coffee shop. So anything that they sold in their coffee shop that was a baked good came from me. I did the cinnamon rolls, gooey butter cake, brownies, bars, cookies, quiche, all of it, Danish, everything. So when my children were home, they were delivering on their way to town in the morning, or my husband would deliver. And it was almost every day. I was baking almost every day, including weekends. And it got to be too much. So I just stopped the everyday and just started doing the cinnamon rolls because I can freeze my cinnamon rolls and send them up there. And then they kind of warm them up and put icing on them, and they're perfect. So that's what I was doing for the last 2 to 3 years. And then I just stopped it altogether. They were expanding. The coffee shop was expanding, and they were asking me to double my production. And although I could have doubled it, I chose for my sake and for my family's sake to kind of take that as a sign to say, okay, I'm going to go back to just retail. I loved the coffee shop. There were no hard feelings, but it was time. It really was time, David.
I saw some social media posts talking about the importance of family to you and the importance of making time for your family. At the same time, I've also seen that you do a lot. You know, you not only run this business, you also help other entrepreneurs, and it looked like you make meals every Tuesday for a large group of people. And I just was like, kind of wondering, like, how do you make time for your family with all of that going on?
It's so funny. I can run around like a chicken with its head cut off. Like once I'm doing something, there's like no stopping me. I'm like baking here, throwing some laundry in here, cooking here. I've cooked for a lot of people for as long as I've been married. My husband's family is very big, and in order to stay in that family, you have to learn to cook for a lot of people. So I've been married to him for 30 years, and to cook for 20 to 30 people honestly is not hard for me. It would have been 30 years ago, but now I could do it in my sleep. It's not a big deal. And then we have the bakery, which I have got down to a science too. And I know on my social media, I'm showing what I'm doing, but I'm also not showing you when I'm sitting on the couch. I'm not showing you when I'm sitting in bed reading a book. I do take a lot of downtime. I just don't show that because nobody wants to see me sitting in bed reading a book. A lot of people say, "Oh my goodness, you're so busy." And I'm like, "Well, actually, my husband and I just got done watching the entire 6 seasons of Lost, and that was a huge commitment." So, we do have downtime in the evenings, but it's purposeful. And I write out my list of things to do every day, and I just try to get them done.
Well, it sounds like you're an incredibly productive person. Have you found things that have made you more productive with your time?
Yes. So, I call myself old school because I love to just make lists in my notebook and a planner. My daughter-in-law, she's every time she has something to do, she puts it in her phone, and I'm like, I'd like it on a piece of paper. So I just write out my on Sundays. This is what I do on Sundays. I plan my week. I plan out my menu for the week, what we're gonna have for dinner. I plan out everything that's gonna get done every day, and then I plan out my grocery list. So I know on Monday, I just got back from the grocery store. That's a check. Got that done, got my tires rotated. And then it's not a baking day for me. Monday is not a baking day. And I know that sounds crazy, but it makes it so much easier to get the baking done when you take a day to get your errands done. I've done it without doing that. I've baked every single day and it's a miserable existence. My husband told me, remember this. He said, Michelle, you don't have to chase every dollar. And it just hit me like, oh my goodness, that's what I'm doing because I'm so motivated. I'm so determined. I have a drive. But he's like, you don't have to chase every dollar. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Is your husband supportive of the business?
I am like so full of ideas. And I know every baker listening to this is like, yes, like our brains never shut off. We always are thinking of things to do. We're always creative. Our brains are just going, going, going. My husband's brain is not like that. He has a job, he goes to work, he delivers fuel, and then he comes home and he leaves his job there. And his brain can work on the yard or drive the tractor or whatever. My brain is always going and he doesn't get that. So he didn't understand like what is wrong. So he's probably like, what is wrong with you? You never stop with your ideas. And so at the beginning, it was just something I did. And then when my bakery business got so big and it turned into a monster, that's when things got tough. Like my bakery was ahead of everything. It became overwhelming, took over my life, which meant it took over my family's life. And it was a year or two of that where finally I had to be slapped across the face and for someone to say, Michelle, enough is enough. And that's when I started pulling back from this and pulling back from this. And I'm so thankful that the Lord showed me what I was doing wrong because it would have just it was hurting my family, it was hurting my marriage. And those two things are more important than my bakery business. Now that we've come on the other side of that and I have balance, I have a wonderful home and bakery balance. My husband is like all for the bakery because he sees it now as something positive instead of something that's taking his wife away from him and the family.
You're very open on social media, and that's a really good thing about you. And you were open enough to share that you made your daughters cry at one point when things got very stressful for you. I was just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit.
Goodness, this happened probably 12 or 13 years ago. I came home from market and my daughter, she had not made dinner like I thought she had. Okay. I'm telling on myself. This is hard for me to say. And I remember just picking at her, like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And I didn't think twice about it. And then I went outside and she was out there crying. And I just remember thinking, what have I done? Like, Michelle, what is wrong with you? And it was a real wake up call for me. You know, we all have those times in our parenting that we're like, what was I thinking? Like, what is wrong with me? And that was one of them. You know, we're not perfect people. We learn from our mistakes and our failures, and my daughters and I now have a beautiful, wonderful relationship. And, they don't even remember. Like, I'll ask them and I'm like, do you remember the time when you got in trouble for going down to the creek before church and getting all muddy? And they're like, no. They don't remember some of those times where me or Andy may have lost our temper. But yeah, that really was a wake up call for me. And I say a lot of this stuff to other home bakers because I want them to see that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones that mess up. And sometimes we lose it. But the way that I've got that under control is to not take on so much. When you're stressed out and you're overwhelmed and you have so much on your plate, you're gonna lose it. And it is not worth it for that extra $50 to $100 a week that you might be putting on your plate.
Well, it sounds like, you just got to the point where you had way too much demand for what you could handle. And I know you said that the cinnamon rolls, when you landed on those, that was a big turning point for your business. Were there other points along the way that you felt like were turning points where your business just went up to another level?
Yes, when we added the coffee shops, we added a local coffee shop. It was the first one in the area, and I was the exclusive baker for it. That really took my business to another level with the publicity that I got. Because of that, then I got so many more orders and so much more people knew about me. So that was one thing. And then we've been with the cinnamon rolls. That's a huge thing for us. We're known in our county for our cinnamon rolls. And then just being at markets for the last 16 years, we're a staple at the markets. People have watched my children grow up at markets from being as tall as my hip to now they're all taller than me. And they've seen my children grow. My children have children now. I have grandchildren at the market. And so that's a real big deal for people. And they love seeing it. And that's actually really fun for us too. We love meeting people in the community, and we've made some really good friends from meeting people at the markets.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about infusing yourself kind of into your marketing, that you are an integral part of the business. And I see you do that on social media as well. Would you say that was intentional? Because a lot of times people want to have their products and their business be kind of separate and stay behind the scenes. Like when they're posting on social media, they don't want to post themselves on social media. They just want it to be all about the product.
This is something I'm really passionate about, and I had to learn this myself. When you're a home baker, what you're doing is you're posting your product. Of course, that's what you're posting because you're a baker and you want people to see your cakes and your cookies and your cupcakes and your breads. But when people know, like, and trust you, they will buy from you. This was a big learning curve for me. I learned that people bought from me because they felt like they knew me. They saw me with my children on social media, or they saw me when I accidentally made a mistake in my bakery and I posted it on social media. They saw when I was being silly with my husband on social media. And so they not only liked my baked goods, they liked me. And so they wanted to buy from me. And I tell this to home bakers all the time. I know you don't want to show your face. I know that it's uncomfortable for you and you don't have to do it all the time, but make sure that people know you. And that doesn't mean you need to post a family picture and just give your whole family history. That means every now and then you sprinkle in a little bit about yourself. You sprinkle in maybe that you're a self taught baker and you learned to bake from checking out books at the library. You sprinkle in that you and your children made a mess in the kitchen today. It was a disaster, but you learned something new. You sprinkle in how you took your children to the market with you and everybody was grumpy, but you did it anyway. And then you came home and ate cereal for dinner. So you sprinkle in all these things, and that builds trust with people because they feel like, oh, she's just like me. Oh, her children are driving her crazy today too. She's just like me. Oh, she's having cereal for dinner. She's just like me. And when you build that trust, that's when people will buy from you.
So one of the things about being that vulnerable, of course, you will attract a lot of fans and raving fans, but you also kind of open yourself up or expose yourself to criticism or hate. This is on social media, right? Have you faced any of that?
Oh, yeah. Now, I'll say I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. My Facebook page, Home Sweet Home Bakery, is for my local customers. It's most people in this town don't even know I have an Instagram. My Facebook page is local people that buy from me my baked goods. All nice. I don't think I've ever had a negative comment on there. But on my Instagram, your Instagram is strangers. They don't know you. But I learned that the only time I get something negative is when a post or a reel goes viral. Most of the time, your followers are not going to make a negative comment. But when a post goes viral, it goes out to everybody in the world and their brother. And so these people who have never seen you before in their lives, you come across their feed and they see you. And I was making a joke about the baking police once, how they're not real, but we're still scared of them. And people just laid into me like, "Why are you afraid of the baking police? What are you doing wrong? Why should you be afraid? If you're doing everything right, then maybe you shouldn't be, be afraid. What are you hiding?" Or I showed a 360 of my commercial kitchen, and I didn't even know this. And if you come to my bakery, David, it is like super clean. But I had a filter on my video, and it looked like the freezer door was brown, and it's not. And I have tried to bleach that thing. It's as clean as can be, but it looked a little bit stained. And so many people were like, "You're disgusting. Your kitchen is disgusting. Maybe you shouldn't be baking out of that." And I was so taken aback because I'm like, "What?" And it really hurt, like, really hurt. And it got to be where I didn't even wanna check my comments. But after a few months, I realized it was only the trolls. That's the only people that made negative comments. And if you would go to their bio, it was usually people with 0 posts, 0 followers that really, I guess they don't have anything else to do. But me and my husband just laugh now. It's kind of funny when I get a negative. I'm like, "Andy, listen to this." And we just laugh.
Yeah, well, we should have prefaced this with the fact that you have a lot of exposure now. You now have over 183,000 followers on Instagram. So, you have clearly gone viral many times and you just have an enormous social media presence. And it sounds like this is something you never would have expected when you started this. What do you think has worked in terms of building up your social following?
My goal for my social media, when I sat down to think about it, was I want to help other home bakers, and I want to share with them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want to share with them my advice because I've been there, done that, and do it in a humorous and real way. One thing I'm not is polished and put together and studio worthy, and most people aren't. So I want to share that I'm real. I want to share with others that they don't have to have it all together with a beautiful kitchen and a perfect family to make things work. You don't have to go out and sell $1,000 every week to have a home bakery. I want to be real and vulnerable. Like you said, I do share some things, personal things, because that makes me relatable to people. And I want to show them that, oh my goodness, if I can do this, you can do this. And my story and my journey is not going to look like yours. I don't have 4 toddlers at home anymore, but I've done things, I've pushed through things, and, not everyone it needs to have a bakery business where they're, making millions. So if you wanna make $100 a week, $100 a week is a car payment for the month or something, and a great eating out budget. I just want everyone to know that it's not you don't have to look like everyone else. Set yourself apart from everyone else and have fun.
Do you feel like there are specific things that you do on Instagram that work well, like things that help with the algorithm?
I hate the Instagram algorithm. I think we would all agree with that. It doesn't make any sense. But what I found is the more vulnerable I am, the more my post will go viral. Now, that's not 100% true because sometimes I am and it doesn't. Or sometimes I'll just have something that I'm like, this is the dumbest post I've ever made and it'll go viral. But what I tell other home bakers that are trying to grow on Instagram is you have to set yourself apart. So, what makes you different from every other home baker out there? Mine is humor, been there, done that, and I've done this for 16 years. What's yours? Is yours that you're baking with 6 kids at home? You're showing how to do this with 6 kids at home. You're baking with organic ingredients. You're gluten free. All of these things can set you apart. That you live in the middle of nowhere or that you live in a big city. Find 3 things that set you apart and really dig into those and then grow your social media from there. One of mine was family. I'm big into showing my family and doing this with my family. I think that's been something good too.
Well, you obviously help a lot of other bakers now. What do you typically tell someone who is just starting out on their journey?
It depends. If you have little children, I always say, think twice. Think really hard about this because when I have one of my grandkids over here, I can't bake for anything. It's just too much. But I say, how do you want your business to look? Why do you want to have a home bakery? Are you looking to make a couple $100s a month or are you looking to make thousands of dollars a month? That's going to be a big deal on how you go forward. Are you wanting to bake every week? Or are you wanting to bake once a month? What can we find that's going to help you? I tell people to write it down on paper. Write down your goals on paper and look at them. Once you have your goals down, your specific goals, not just I want to have a home bakery, but I want to have a home bakery and this is why and this is what I want to do with it, then write down the steps you need to take to get there. If you're going to make $1,000 a month, then I always say you have to sell $2,000 a month because with all the expenses and things that happen. And how are you going to get there? You have to write it all out and have it in front of you, or you're just going to be flying by the seat of your pants. And that is no way to run a business.
That's a really good point because a lot of times people will say, this XYZ is what you should do when you start a business, but every business is completely unique to the individual. And your answer there was right on point with that, which is that there's not necessarily a certain thing that everyone should do. It really depends on the baker and where they are and what they want.
Right. Because a lot of people, they want to do farmers market. Well, if you want to do farmers market, you're going to be lifting tables and canopies. And if you're like me, I had 4 children. I didn't really lift tables and canopies because my children did it for me. And if you don't have someone there to help you, you have to think about that. Can you go to farmers market, lift all your tables, lift all your totes, lift your canopies, you pack it in, pack it up, take it down and then take it home? Can you do that? If you can't, then you might want to choose another way to go, like a porch pop up or something at your house. You have to think about what you physically can do, what you can do if you have children, what you can do if you're an empty nester. All those things come into play. And if you want to grow your home bakery, you do have to be consistent because you have to show people that they can trust you. And when they only see you at market, they think you're going to be there and you don't show up and because little Susie threw up, that consistency makes people think you're not dependable. Consistency is huge and you know that. It's huge. But there are times where you have to let it go. Like, I remember one market I just didn't go to because I mentally couldn't do it. And I remember one of the farmers asking me the next week, "Hey, Michelle, where were you last week?" And I said, "I had too much quantity time with my kids. I just couldn't do it. Like, there was too much mentally. They were like, my kids were just too much for me and I couldn't get it together." And I remember thinking, that's okay. It is okay that I did not go to the market this week. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, and I have done that, but throughout the years I've learned you can't do that. You're not perfect, you're not a robot, you're not Walmart.
You've talked a lot about your children and how they worked all the way up into high school.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of parents want their kids to be part of the business, but sometimes that's challenging. Like, how did you get them to be as involved in the business as they were?
Andy and I are very much, like I said, we're old school. And when we had our children, it was a big deal for us to do everything together. And I asked my children as they're older now, I said, "Did you feel like you just had to work all the time? Did you feel like your life was a life of drudgery because you had a lot of responsibility?" And they all said, "No, we didn't know any better." So our motto was work hard, play hard. So, yes, they had chores. They had to work in the family business, but they also got to play a lot. And take off for hours during the day and run around with their cousins who live around here too. So, from the time they were about 3 or 4, we would give them little jobs, like set the table or put the books away. So they didn't know any different. They didn't know that that's not normally how it is. And so once they got older, it was a no-brainer that they would just be working. And we also, and I know this is probably controversial, is we did not buy them things. When they turned a certain age, they were expected to buy things on their own. They all bought their own cars, their own insurance. If they wanted a cell phone, they purchased that. Any clothes they wanted, they purchased those because they could find them at yard sales. And because of that, they were very motivated to work. And they were very motivated to go out there and find creative ways to make money because they knew we weren't going to pay for them if they wanted to go to Chick-fil-A or anything like that. And it wasn't because we didn't want to, we also couldn't afford it. We didn't have a lot of money when they were growing up. So I think it worked out great because now they have a great work ethic. They all are very appreciative for what they have and they look back on it fondly. So that makes my mother's heart happy. But I know this is not normal. I know that a lot of people don't do that, and that's okay. But that's what worked for our family.
One thing I know your kids were pretty involved in was the lemonade stand. And can you just share a little bit about that? Because it's like an entire other business that you have.
Okay, I love this. This is great. So, my daughters, we went to a craft fair. We used to do craft fairs. And there was a person there selling fresh squeezed lemonade, and they lived about an hour and a half from us. And I was watching them and I'm looking like, oh, that is the coolest little business. So after watching them all weekend and we actually got to know them, I said, would you mind if my daughters did that business here? And he said, absolutely not. Go ahead. So we didn't ask him for his recipes or how he did his business. We're like, we're going to figure this out. So we spent that winter taste testing how to make fresh squeezed lemonade and flavoring it. And my 2 daughters named their business Twice as Nice Lemonade because they're identical twins, started going to markets with me and selling fresh squeezed lemonade. They started selling maybe 30, 40, 50 cups at a market. When they stopped, they were selling about 300 cups at a market. And when they left home, so Katie got married and then Beth went to Alaska, I didn't want the lemonade business to end. So I took it over in case when they came back, they wanted to do it again, but neither one of them want to do it. And now we are selling 4 to 500 cups of lemonade at a market. And it's what I do in the summer because I can take a break from baking and it's part of that baking balance. And so it's perfect for me in the summer because it's so hot in the summer and baking is just not always the best. So I get like a 3-month break from real busy baking. And it's a way for me that I can keep going to markets because they're my favorite place to be and still make some money. So I love it.
4 to 500 cups per market is a legit business. I mean, what did you have to do to get that set up? Because that's not typically something that would fall under the cottage food realm.
No, in fact, most people cannot do it. And because you're cutting fresh fruit, and because of that, it's not allowed under most cottage food laws. Now, it is allowed here because in Missouri or in Cape Girardeau County where I live, they allow you to do it as long as you have a dishwashing station set up at your booth, which is a pretty much just 3 totes, one with wash water, one with rinse water, and one with bleach water, and a hand washing station, which is just a cooler with a spigot, and you have soap and paper towels. And they allow us to do that at our market. And it's a legit business. It's physically hard, but we have so much fun doing it. We've had so much family jump in and help us, so many cousins that have helped the girls through the years. And my goal is for my grandchildren to take it over. Lord willing, they will, but who knows? It doesn't sound like it would go with a home bakery, but that's what the girls did next to me for years. And it's been wonderful.
You said it's a lot of work, and you could obviously buy your way into lemonade, but I know you're squeezing these lemons all on the spot, right? So
Yes.
Well, I just want to know what your production looks like.
So Thursday market, we only need 2 people to help to do it. I'll talk about Saturday market. Saturday market is in downtown Cape Girardeau on the Mississippi River. It starts in May, and we can do 120 cups of lemonade an hour. That's the most we can put out. And I'm usually the squeezer, so I can go through 4, 5, 600 squeezed lemons in 4 hours. And then we have someone that fills the cups with ice and the sugar water and the flavoring. And then we have someone who takes the money and is our runner and has to run and get more sugar water or take out the trash, the lemons rinds, or mop up our spills or get the other cooler of ice. We call the runner is to me, we say, if you want to be the runner, just expect us to yell at you for 4 hours. And we're like, but we're fine. We're fun. We're like, get more water, get this, get that. It's such a fun, fast-paced experience. I actually do have a course on how to have the lemonade business. We do really well with the lemonade. It's really fun.
Yeah, so I know you have a course on the lemonade business, and you have a number of courses on things we talked about. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because I know that's like an entire another business that you also
Yeah.
have and you work on. Somehow you have time for it. I don't know how you have time for it, but somehow you make the time for it.
Yeah, so this is a crazy story. I've always liked teaching other home bakers. In our town, there would be people that would reach out to me and say, "Michelle, can you just sit with me at the coffee shop and help me? I want to get started baking bread or I want to start coming to markets." Of course. And that started happening more and more and more. And I thought, my goodness, if the people in our town want to learn, then surely there are people out there who want to learn how to have a home bakery. And so I always wanted to go online, but I didn't know how. I'm terrible with technology. I'm clueless. So I prayed a lot about it. And there is a girl in our town who I had been connected with through another friend. And she does what I was looking for. She does the websites and shows you how to build courses. And I messaged her. It all worked out. I said, "Is this something you could do for me?" And she's like, "Absolutely. Let's talk after I get back from vacation." While she was on vacation, my Instagram went viral and it blew up. And it was all like this perfect storm. And she got me set up. She taught me so much and she taught me how to do the courses and things online. And she was just what I needed. So most people can do that stuff themselves. I cannot. So right now, my favorite thing that I have online is my baker's library. It's something that I do for other home bakers. We have a Q&A once a month and we have a guest speaker once a month. It's inexpensive. You can come in and ask questions. I have short videos on there. I have recipes on there, guides in there, and it's an inexpensive way for me to motivate and encourage home bakers every month.
So is this something that you mentioned you had stopped doing the wholesale? Like, are you planning on focusing more of your efforts on the informational business as you move forward?
That would probably be what in my brain would be the smart thing to do, but I also love baking so much that because I stopped the wholesale, I can now concentrate more on doing some baking pop-ups every few weeks throughout the year, except in the summer. So I think I will do that. I don't have to sell, $3,000 at a pop-up. I don't want to go back to that. That's so much work for me. If I can do just a small pop-up every few weeks, that's what I want to do. And then in the holidays have much bigger ones. And yeah, I do want to put more effort into my online stuff, but I'm not ready to give up the baking just yet. I really enjoy it.
So you've talked a lot about having a lot of help from family members. Have you had employees or brought on other people other than family?
Yes, I've had employees. We actually used to live where we live out in the country, had a lot of family live out here too, cousins and second cousins, and they helped me, but they're all gone now. So I have hired other friends of mine from market. I've hired their children or friends of mine. And right now I have a friend of mine who helps me once a week. A lot of times, home bakers will think, I don't have enough money to hire someone. And that's true. You might not when you first start. But once you get to where you're overwhelmed and you can't handle all the work that you're getting, hiring someone maybe just for 2 to 3 hours a week, or maybe 2 to 3 hours twice a week, will do wonders for you. I had a niece that used to come over after school twice a week, and she would do folding boxes or wrapping cookies, and I would tell her, "Emily, I'm done with my work for the day. I'm gonna go do this. You're on your," I would give her a list of things to do, and I could go do some housework or maybe just sit and not do anything. Having her do that was a lifesaver. And you can say, "Well, I can't afford it." And I tell a lot of people, "Well, you may not think you can afford it, but you can get so much more done with one other person, even if they just work for 2 to 3 hours a week."
What do you think prevented you from, say, I know the wholesale account asked you to double your production and just bringing on more help to produce more of the cinnamon rolls, instead of letting it go entirely? Because you said you're a very ambitious person.
I could, but 8 years was enough for me. Wholesale is a tricky business. You're working for less. So the wholesale was great for me. Like we had talked before, it put my bakery on another level and it got my name out there to a lot of people that never would have seen it. But one of the things with wholesale and doing cinnamon rolls is before I put them in the freezer, they have to cool. So usually I will get them done around 2 or 3, and I have to wait for them to cool. So then I'll go make dinner. And I have to come back to the bakery around 6 or 7 or 8 in the evening and get them in the freezer. So that would have been another 2 days maybe of doing that every night. And I just didn't want that.
You said you'd done this wholesale business for 8 years and were producing 150 pounds of cinnamon rolls a month. And I think I saw on social media that you just got a commercial oven last year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So this entire time, were you using just a regular oven?
Yes, that was people always say, "Did you just have one oven?" Yes, we do have a double oven in our regular kitchen, but only one of them worked, and we would use that sometimes. But most of the time, it was just one oven, and that was why we would be in the bakery so long. We would have so much just like kind of waiting to go into the oven, and it was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is taking forever." So we got the commercial oven, and it was a game changer for the cinnamon rolls. And I'm like, "Well, now that I'm not doing wholesale anymore, I need it?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, yes," because I still make cinnamon rolls because I'm still selling them retail. And I just baked 300 cookies in there yesterday, and it was wonderful. Like, it was the best. And we bought it used. We bought it from some friends who also bought it from used, so we got a really good deal on it.
I feel like most people would have invested in a commercial oven years earlier. What do you think held you back?
I did not have a clue about commercial ovens. I had looked them up so many times, they're 3, 4, 5,000. And I'm like, okay, so if I spend 4 or 5,000 on this commercial oven, what if it breaks? What if I don't like it? What if it doesn't do what I want? I was very scared of that because that's a lot of money. And so I just could never commit. And believe me, I had gone to a local restaurant supply asking about them, but I just couldn't commit because it was so much money. And I was just, because I didn't have a lot of knowledge on commercial ovens, it was not something I ever wanted to invest in. So when the opportunity came for us to get this one that was a super good price, we are like, well, it's a no-brainer. And thankfully, it did take 5 hours to clean, but it was so worth it.
Do you feel like there's anything else that you feel like, oh, I should have done that sooner?
The baking rack that I got, I guess it's called a baker's rack, some people call them trams, that holds the half sheet cookie sheets. I don't know why I didn't get one earlier. And it's funny because even though I have a commercial bakery, I still think of myself as just a regular home baker. Like I just have this kitchen and I bake in it. So buying big commercial things was just not something I really thought a lot about of. So buying that baker's rack was huge. Like I thought if I would have known that I would love this so much, I would have bought it 10 years ago because I used to just put my baking trays out on the counter and then we would run out of counter space. And that baker's rack is just, I love it. I love it so much.
You mentioned it a couple times already, but your faith in God, I know, is a very important aspect of everything that you do. Can you just share a little bit about how that's led you in your journey?
Yes, it's hard because when we have our bakeries, sometimes we want to put our trust in our bakeries or trust in the money that we're getting, but my faith is in the Lord, and that is where I need to rest. So I see when I go off track, like I shared about my bakery becoming a monster, I started putting my faith in myself, in my bakery, in my income, and I lost track and it hurt everybody. And so the way things are now, I wait on the Lord. I could tell you so many stories, but when my bakery became a monster and I didn't know what to do, I just started praying and I said, "Lord, I don't know what to do about this." I'm at markets, I'm in the coffee shops, I'm taking orders. I don't know what to do. And I waited on the Lord for a year. And I was so afraid to approach the coffee shop and tell them I wanted to pull back and not do everything. I just wanted to make the cinnamon rolls. And I didn't know how to approach them. And I waited a year. And one day I was sitting in the coffee shop, and the owner said to me out of the blue, he said, "Michelle, is this too much for you? Like, this can't be profitable for you to be doing all this wholesale. Do you want to just do the cinnamon rolls?" And I was sitting there and I felt like going, "Oh, like, that's what I've been wanting." And it fell in my lap. And I was like, "Thank you, Lord." And I said, "Yeah, I think that would be great." And he goes, "Well, let's make it happen." And I waited for a year for an answer. The Lord clearly gave me an answer. And it really increased my faith. And no, I'm not perfect. And yes, sometimes I fall back on my own understanding, but I do have a strong faith in the Lord and really want to lean into Him and trust in Him only, which is very hard.
Well, it's an incredible journey, 16 years and still going strong. As you look ahead, what are your plans for the future?
Right now, I always tell other home bakers, once you have it all figured out, things are going to change. So right now, I'm very happy with how things are. I have a great home bakery balance, but we have another grandchild on the way due in September. We don't know when there'll be another one on the way. Or my husband and I both have aging parents that are getting to where they're going to need help eventually. So, I know it's cliche to call them seasons of life, but we'll be in a new season of life soon. So when we get to where things need to change, I will look back or look at what's going on and say, okay, this is going to change here, or this is going to change here. I might have to pull back on here. I might have to add this here. We'll see. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing now, lemonade in the summer, pop ups, teaching online. And then when things change and seasons change, we'll just modify and adjust.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on the show. Now, if somebody would like to learn more about you, where can they find you or how can they reach out?
My website is homesweethomebaker.com. And I'm also on Instagram at homesweethomebaker with an underscore under every word. So that's how they can find me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us today.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Thanks so much for having me.
That wraps up another episode of the Forger podcast. For more information about this episode, go to forger.com/podcast/140. And if you feel like you've gotten a lot of value from this podcast, I have a favor to ask you. Could you take a quick moment right now and leave me either a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify? It's truly the best way to support this show and will help others like you find this podcast. And finally, if you're thinking about selling your own homemade food, check out my free mini course where I walk you through the steps you need to take to get a cottage food business off the ground. To get the course, go to cottagefoodcourse.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.